Yelm Planning Commission meeting on March the 24th at 4 p.m. He will join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
and to the
for which it
republic
stands,
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
The link that went for the
under God,
first meeting
God,
is
indivisible,
bad.
indivisible,
So go on the
with
website
liberty
open
and
the
justice
agenda
for
on
all.
that link.
Thank you. Tammy, could you do a roll call of attendees of the Planning Commission, please?
Absolutely. Terry Fugich,
Here.
John Thompson,
Here.
Ann Warman,
here,
Bob Howard is here, Carlos Perez,
Here.
Floyd Sheldon.
here,
Thank you very much. That means we have a quorum. We had opened the meeting on March 22nd, and the following items were approved when the meeting was there. The agenda, minutes, and at this point, Tammy, do we have any public comment or communication?
Yes, first of all, please accept my apologies for the technical difficulties of the last meeting. Sometimes it takes me more than once to learn by my mistakes. And so from now on, I will be holding our Planning Commission meetings here from City Hall, where there is a good, strong internet connection, and I won't be freezing, and hopefully internet will not drop while I'm here. So again, please accept my apologies for that. And thank you for allowing us to move forward to this day for continuing this meeting. With that, I'll jump in. I have received public communications. As we talked about when we started this meeting a couple days ago, I had discussed that I had sent a mailing to property owners about the rezone that we are reviewing today. And I did receive a phone call from a property owner that owns the majority of vacant land, about 18 to 20 acres in the rezone area. And they did call me to let me know they couldn't attend the meeting today, but they were in favor of including their land as part of the area to be considered to be rezoned, and were favorable to the R6 zoning. So when we get into the map, I'll show you the properties that were affected and the property owners that were willing or that were agreeable to the rezone.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other public communications or comments?
Not at this time.
At this time, let us move on to the comprehensive plan update rezone request.
Okay, I'm trying. Oh, my goodness. I opened the wrong agenda. So I don't have my staff report. I'm going to bring it up here in just a second. My apologies. I thought I was right on top of it and having everything ready. And I opened the wrong file. Give me a second. Okay. Whew. And with that, now that I have the right document open, I see that John Graver has joined us in the meeting. So I will make sure that he's logged in under the roll call.
Thank you.
I know we started this on Monday, and I'm not exactly sure how far I got through. So I'm just going to start from the beginning. And I wanted to open up with the fact that in January, when we reviewed the possibility of rezoning properties in the industrial area, we had looked at a map that had proposed a lot of different options in expanding the rezone areas to properties outside of the city limits. And as we learned in the previous meeting about the commercial rezone, we found that there's a lot of information, a little more detailed information we need to review regarding tax base and sewer basin impacts and so forth. But the other thing that I come to realize that at this time, it's really not appropriate to go looking further outside of our urban growth area for this rezone, mainly because in a couple of years, we're going to do our 8-year periodic review of the comprehensive plan. At that time, we're going to have updated population projections, and we're also going to have a buildable lands report that's going to help us determine our urban growth area sizing, if it needs to be reduced or enlarged, or also if the zoning is appropriate for those areas. So at this time, we should stick with the requests that we received for the properties that were within the city limits and look at any further rezones or UGA issues as part of the periodic review in 2025.
Thank you.
Okay, so having said that, I also have not had the opportunity to do some of the background research on the financial impacts on property taxes and the B&O taxes that we may or may not lose with any possible rezones in the commercial and industrial area. That is one thing that I will follow up on. The second thing that I don't have for this meeting is the impacts to our sewer basin. And forgive me if I am repeating myself, but our sewer system is such that every house has a step tank, but when the liquids get sent from the step tank to the sewer treatment plant, they go through pressurized system in the pipes. And if we look at increasing the residential uses to medium or high density residential, it may increase that pressurization of those lines, and we need to make sure that they're sized adequately to handle that change in use. So our public works is working with our engineer that does a system plan. They're looking at some other work, and they're including that review of the change in zoning and the impacts of whether it were to be built out as industrial or if it and commercial, what it would be if it was a medium density residential, and then what the impacts would be if we consider the high density residential in the other area. So there is a little more information that will be coming at a later meeting. But at this point, I think just looking at the rezone requests, the properties that are in question, making sure we have logical boundaries and that they meet the intent of the comprehensive plan, that will move us forward, and the detailed information on the other impacts I will bring as soon as I have. Everybody can see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So we did receive a request to rezone properties in our industrial area. This is First Street. This moves up to Roten Road. This is NP Road. Oh, I'm sorry, my mouse moved. And this is Railway Road. So the properties front Railway Road. This property all outside of the purple area is in our urban growth area here. And this orangey color is within our city limits. The rezone request included 2 property owners' signatures. This property right here belongs to Puget Sound Energy. It's their substation, electrical substation. And this property here is developed as residential, and it has a cell tower on it. There's a couple small houses as we go further up. And then the land here, this parcel, this long skinny one and this big one here belong to the property owner is called SFI. And the representative of the property owner called me this morning. Her name was Ann, and she wanted to let us know that they would like to have their properties included in the possible rezone, and that they were agreeable to have it be moderate density. So with that, a logical boundary and staying within our city limits would be to look at this bank of properties and rezone them as moderate density residential. When we looked at the properties, one of the items that we need to look at is if there's any environmental issues or constraints. And in this regard, this property here is encompassed by a flood zone. So development in this parcel where you see kind of the line strike through would not be able to be developed. And then the rest of the land here is considered soils that are suitable to the Mazama pocket gopher. And so any development that would occur on those parcels, and then any that might occur outside the flood zone, they would all have to follow our critical areas code at any time of development. Otherwise, there's no other environmental constraints. They were annexed into the city in 1994 as residential agriculture, 1 unit to 5 acres. And in 1995, when we updated our comp plan, the zoning was changed to industrial. As we did with the commercial rezone that we looked at in February, I used the same layout and the same format to look at the comprehensive or the goals of the Growth Management Act, as well as the comprehensive plan for the city of Yelm. And we need to make sure that any rezones that we consider that they are consistent with the goals and policies of the Growth Management Act and with our comp plan. So I'm not going to go through these individually. It'll take quite a while, but I do believe that the consideration of rezoning this to moderate density would meet the goals and policies of the Growth Management Act. The properties are within our city limits already. It does reduce sprawl. It keeps the development closer to city limits and not spreading out into the county. Railway is considered a neighborhood collector street, which when developed fully is designed to handle a greater amount of traffic. And then as development occurs on these parcels, whether it be residential or industrial, they would be required to do frontage improvements. So the streets will either be improved as part of development, or at some point the city may need to come in and do those improvements. It meets the housing goal for the R6 zone, allows single family and multifamily development at up to 6 units per acre. So the one goal of the Growth Management Act that I had a little struggle with was the economic development portion of the Growth Management Act. And with that, in 2001, the city did an industrial market study. And we looked at the industrial area within the city limits, and also the lands that were pre-zoned as industrial in the urban growth area surrounding the city limits line. And if we were to look at rezoning the properties within the city limits, it's just under 50 acres and would be approximately 29% of the property that's within the city limits and about 19% of the industrial land overall, including what's in our urban growth area. I do want to note that the industrial study, the numbers that were used there are close, but since the time of that industrial study, there has been a couple of rezones, both in the city and the county. So the actual acreage in the city limits of industrial zone land is 172 acres. And then in the urban growth area, it's about 94. The industrial study showed that the city of Yelm had a lot of great land and ready and prime and available for industrial development. However, we are in competition of other industrial land in the Olympia, Lacey, Tumwater area. That's right off of I-5. So basically what that study said was we are prepared and ready and we have the adequate land available, but we weren't prime time yet, that there was still land available in these other areas, and that heavy industrial probably wouldn't be coming to our area for some time. The other item that they talked about in the industrial study was some of the industrial lands north of us in Pierce County, which I don't know if you've been to Frederickson lately, but there's a lot of industrial development going on there. So what that study basically said is that while we have the areas available for future industrial uses, probably the best way at this point would be to look at market-driven opportunities to be able to bring industrial uses in, or consider changing it to a master plan business park, or look to reconfigure our industrial area altogether, maybe looking further out in our urban growth area to leave that industrial or to provide for future industrial growth. Another item that's occurred since that time is in 2001, we had just recently purchased the rail line that comes right down the backs of these properties. And we had, while we were a little unsure, we had hoped that we would either be able to provide industrial rail use to the site or even consider it a light rail. After all this time in the review and studies we've done, we found that it really isn't feasible to be able to connect our rail line to the Tacoma rail line. There's issues with bridges over the river. And so we've decided to not explore that using the rail line for industrial or light rail, but to convert that rail line to a trail. So it's now, we're looking to develop it as the Prairie Line Trail. Another item in our in our industrial area is we have a free trade zone overlay. And without going into great detail, it just allows industrial users to be able to use land with some tax benefits for goods that are brought in from overseas or shipped out of overseas. And there's a lot of detail on that. But that free trade zone area is actually on the north side of these properties. It's along Roten Road and on the northwest side of the Northern Pacific Road or NP Road. So the properties that we're looking at are not within the free trade zone area, so it wouldn't affect that in any way. Moving forward, property rights, this proposal doesn't require the taking of any private property. All permits would be reviewed under the city's permitting standards. None of the properties are considered or projected to be natural resource lands. Open space and recreation, those lands are not, sorry, a little interruption. They're not slated for open space, but residential development would create open space for the residential developments. As we discussed before, any future development would need to comply with our critical areas code in regard to any environmental issues. Citizen participation, I did mail out the notice to the property owners and received information and confirmation back from them. And when we're ready to present your final choice of rezone, if you want to move forward with this or reject it, whichever your choice is, this city residents and any interested parties will have the availability to speak to you through the public hearing process. At development, the city will provide water and sewer services. At this time, they're located to the south of the properties at the corner of Railway and Middle Road. So any development on these parcels, whether they developed residential or industrial, would need to extend the lines down Railway Road. But again, our sewer system plan calls out for that. And there's no historic buildings there within that zoning area. So then jumping into our comprehensive plan goals and policies, we want the land use, in our land use element, we have a goal to establish a variety of land use and to adopt industrial land uses to meet the community need. And that's where we've designated these areas to be industrial. There's approximately 172 acres right now within the city limits and about 94 outside the city limits in the surrounding areas. This rezone would remove about 50 acres, just under 50 acres of industrial area, which leaves 21 acres of vacant land available for industrial development. Also in the land use element, we want to encourage commercial and industrial growth. We want to make sure that we locate industrial areas near major transportation routes, which the access here to the Yelm Loop is going to be right on Wilkinson Road. And then also to locate warehouse and assembly and distribution land in the perimeter of the industrial area. So our property is located at our outer edge of the town. It is going to be have direct access to the loop. Development will have to follow some neighborhood commercial roads or neighborhood collector roads to get to the loop. However, the Yelm Loop is going to provide access both on Wilkinson and Roten Road here. The rail line that goes right in the middle of these properties is proposed to be turned into the Yelm Prairie Line Trail. And then there's residential uses to the south. This is pre-zoned as residential here. This is pre-zoned as industrial, and then outside of the city limits, kind of outside of this area, is pre-zoned as residential. In regards to our economic development, we want to encourage commercial and industrial growth. In doing so, we do have the facilities, the water and sewer and so forth to be able to provide to industrial growth as it occurs. And then also our city council is reviewing some economic development goals that they are wish to project for the future. And I know that commercial has been a big one right now that they're thinking about, but they've also brought up that industrial uses are important to them as well. So we might be hearing something a little bit further from them in the near future. Of course, providing more housing absolutely meets the land use element goals. The moderate density allows for single family and multifamily dwellings. It allows for duplexes, townhouses, and pretty much meets all the housing element goals within the city of Yelm's comprehensive plan. In looking at the amendment, although I've already said this, we need to look and see if there's been any changes in circumstances since the last time we looked at the zoning in this area. And probably the greatest change for us is that the rail service is no longer an option for any industrial use. And so maybe it is an opportunity for us to look at this side of the rail line where it's surrounded by other residential growth and look at the possibility of bringing housing into that area. The Olympia, Lacey, Tumwater areas are still building out. There's still land available there, as well as growth in the Pierce County area to the north of us. So some of the questions that we need to ask ourselves is impacts of this rezone to city infrastructure. And so how does the comprehensive plan create an impact to the city's water system? And in looking at the water system plan, the future projections for industrial uses are that industrial uses use about 200 gallons per day per acre, where a single family home creates 250 gallons per day. Trying to do that math, and I hope I did it right. I'm sure somebody will correct me when I didn't, but at 50 acres, if developed industrially, could equal up to about 10,000 gallons per day, where 50 acres of housing, if it was built to its highest density of 300 dwelling units, would use about 64,000 gallons per day. That is a huge increase in water. So that is, we'll need to make sure that we take that into consideration when we're looking at the possible rezone. And then making sure that our water line distribution sizes are adequate to handle that increase in water. And then does it create an impact to the city's sewer system? Each home would require its own step tank. And so that means more additional tanks that the city would need to take ownership and maintain. But when you have industrial uses, they could be high water users. They could have more impacts on fats, oils, and greases into our system. And then the last thing is the further analysis we need to do to make sure that the impacts to the pressurized system is acceptable with the change in use. When looking at transportation impacts, the single family residences create 1.1 new PM peak trips per hour, and 300 homes would create about 303 new PM peak hour trips. Looking at industrial transportation impacts was a little bit different in they vary. Some industrial uses have very low transportation impact. I think I saw 0.4 new trips per PM peak hour, and some very high industrial users go up to 8.84. So what I tried to do was take an average, what if we have some high, some low, and try to look at the average. So I looked at the average between the high and low uses as between 108 to 442 new PM peak hour trips, which falls either below or just above what a residential development would do. So I think it probably would equal out. I don't think that in the industrial would probably have all 50 acres as a very high industrial transportation use. And I also know that sometimes you don't quite make the full density allowed of 6 units per acre. So this number could be even a little bit high. So I think it kind of balances each other out. While Railway Road right now isn't constructed to city standards, development, whether it be residential or development, would require frontage improvements. And so I think the trips generated and the impacts to the street would be about the same. So in conclusion, the questions that we absolutely need to answer is the amendment consistent with the goals and policies of the Growth Management Act? Is it as consistent with our own goals and policies of our comprehensive plan and our utility plans? And have we reviewed the potential impacts with this proposal? So I know there's a couple things hanging out there that we don't know, but I would wanted to present this to you and see if you had any questions or comments.
I have a comment. If Jerry's ready for us to do comment.
Yes, please.
Okay. One comment is in consideration of the transportation requirements. By the way, I think you've done a wonderful job. This has been put together very well, and it certainly seems that we're meeting our goals. But I have just this one comment that the intersection between Railway and Canal, I don't know if you can point out where that is, Tammy, on that. It's right there, right? That would be the intersection that the residents that would come through from this new development area would potentially go through that intersection to be able to access the loop. That intersection has problems today in terms of visibility and just the speed at which people are going up and down Canal. And they'll probably still have that high speed on Canal, even with when the loop goes in, because of the access that will be further, I guess you call it further upstream to the loop. And so I think we may need to consider some, not only improving the railway road to that point with this development, but the city may need to consider a roundabout or a better intersection at that point with a lot more traffic. Now that's me saying that most of the traffic to get to the new loop would go through that intersection. They may.
And I disagree. I drive that every day.
What's that?
I drive through that intersection multiple times a day. I disagree.
You disagree? I live down
I do.
beyond
I
that
disagree.
intersection. I drive it multiple times a day, and I consider it dangerous. But I'm coming down Railway, not down Canal. So
it's a four-way stop right now, right?
it's
Yeah,
a four-way.
It's four-way stop. I come down Canal.
Yeah, people coming down Canal do not stop on occasion. That's
wow. Well, the city could put a flashing light like they have at Four Corners there, flashing stop signs. There's a way you could
right.
make it safer without doing a traffic circle.
I'm just saying that this may be a consideration for later on. The traffic patterns may change considerably once the loop is in terms of how people go to town and how they go out of town. And that's something I can't tell exactly how it's going to work, because Railway will be sliced in two a little bit further down. It will not have direct access to the loop. So Floyd, you say that you go down Canal and it doesn't appear to be a problem. And I go down Railway, and anyway, that's just the difference there.
And I think
Could be a timing thing too, you know, who knows? Tammy, I had one question real quick. Is Rowton going to have a access onto the loop? So Rowton and also Wilkinson or Canal both would have?
so I know this might be, oh, here, we can see the outline of, do you see the outline of the loop?
Mhm.
So there will be access on Rowton Road that jumps onto the loop here. There will be a roundabout at Wilkinson. So this access at Wilkinson will be there. And I don't believe there's another access to the loop until you're down on
There's
Flume
On
Road.
Flume, there's supposed to be one on Flume.
Okay. So what's going to happen, John, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm going to
No, I'm
respond.
done.
I'm going to respond to Ann really quick. Is when we have development within the city, we need to look at the transportation impacts. So we would be looking to see when development occurs, where the traffic's going to go. If improvements, which your ideas are all great, if improvements are needed to those intersections, what we would do is find out when the improvement is needed based on the impact. And so while development of one 10-acre parcel may not make the intersection fail, development of 50 acres might make the intersection fail. So we would look at possible nexus between the development's impacts individually and what the overall plan for that intersection would be in the future with that much traffic on it. So those would be part of the development review, whether it be industrial or residential. It still would be part of the review of the impacts and how they would be handled, and then how mitigation would be required and when somebody might be required to be a part of that mitigation program.
It may just be improving the what do they call it? The edges. There's some large potholes at the edges if you're turning from Railway onto Canal. And there's some large bushes that you can't see through.
I might also offer to you that I believe on our website, we have a new way to report potholes or any other issues on roads that are within the city limits. I don't think this is within the city limits. If you happen to have, if they happen to fall within the city limits, we have a way to report that. So you can report anything, whether it's transportation or trees or potholes, and you know, there's a way to do that. But while I was speaking, I was noticing this was not in the city limits, so my apologies.
My only questions are, I'm assuming we really are more of a bedroom community. I mean,
Yes.
I don't know what industry would be moving into our area that would actually create enough jobs for us to say, wow, this is great. We need to have all this industry area because it's going to create so much opportunity. I don't see that happening, especially since Pierce County and Thurston and other areas have way more access to any kind of industry that actually wants to transport goods in any way. The property down there, it wasn't those two properties, but a property a little further to the north. I actually had that for sale probably 25 years ago. And, you know, and it was for sale and for sale and for sale and for sale. And nothing as far as industry goes. I mean, not once did I ever get a contact that said, what all could you do there? I mean, nothing, you know. So I would, you know, my thoughts are, wow, you know, maybe would be nice to have a little more bedroom community. It
I
would help the
agree.
stores.
I agree with you totally, John. In fact, that's the points that I was going to bring up. That's what we're known. We're more known. Our community is more known as a bedroom community. That's the way it's developed. And any dreams that we may have had of, industrialization and commercial properties other than maybe service stuff, I think that's a dream. That's a dream, and we should just concentrate on developing the residential aspect of our community. We've got a local casino. We have easy access to the mountain. We've got a trail. A lot of other things that we could develop to make us known as a bedroom. We're already known as a bedroom community, but to focus on that and to promote that, I really think that's the way we ought to be going. But that creates other problems: transportation, water, things that I was concerned about when I saw this rezoning request. But then again, are we talking about 10 years from now, and we can do what we need to do to generate the infrastructure to support a greater residential community? I hope we can, but I sure would like to know a little bit more about what the city council has in mind in terms of how to generate revenues and all that other stuff.
So, hey, let me give you guys some numbers. And John knows this, and John Graver, and of course, John Thompson does too. And so does Jerry. So here's some numbers for you. 1 out of every 10 high school graduate joins the military. 7 out of 10 of them are from small town America. 24,000 to 25,000 service members come to JBLM, are on JBLM. That's Air Force, Army, Navy, Marine Corps. Over 9,000 of them move every year. 65% of our business in real estate comes from service members. And by the way, what are they looking for? They're trying to replicate where they grew up. And the one place that they can replicate where they grew up is Yelm, Washington. If we're thinking this is industrial versus residential, we're missing the mark. I'm sorry.
Right.
By the way, if you start looking at transportation and moving stuff in and around Yelm, it's pretty restrictive right now. Now, the bypass is going to help. Got it. But still, try to get over that bridge in McKenna and the traffic light in McKenna at 6 o'clock at 5:30 in the afternoon right now. And by the way, the person that's looking to bring business is not looking in 5 years from now. We're looking at right now, the next 12 to 24 months, until the state changes the light in McKenna and that bridge. Our industrial growth is going to be restricted. Because a person that's looking to invest money is looking to make money in the next 12 to 24 months, not 10 years from now. So anyway, that's my Steve, the young guy in the group. So
Your industrial focus
By the way-
right now, your industrial focus right now is Lacey, Frederickson, the 167 corridor. And that's the direction it's going to go, because we don't have either the heavy duty roads or now rail transportation. So nobody's going to look for big business out here or industrial development. So I think I agree with you guys. Main thing you're going to be seeing here is residential.
Right. And people need more housing. There is a lack of housing that is at a reasonable price. At least from what I've been seeing, people are starting to scoop it up all around us. So I'm very much for this, to be able to offer, the single family homes and the we think of the multifamily. So.
Well, I would, I don't want to keep interrupting you, but I want to make sure that I can respond to the things that I'm hearing. First, while we know that there's a lot of residential growth and there's a lot of want and or need and desire for residential growth, good, healthy cities need both commercial and industrial to function. We need to make sure that we're careful about the loss of the possibility of industrial land. While it might not be huge today, it could be in the future, and we might be missing opportunities if we lose providing for that. There are plenty of uses that could come out here that wouldn't be, huge. Probably not the IKEA or Amazon distribution warehouses of 40 acres in size, but there are other industrial uses like the cabinet manufacturing facility that's looking to go right here. That is a wonderful industrial use. It's going to bring, 20 some jobs to the city. It's a clean use. It's not going to cause a lot of problems. So we don't want to lose the opportunity to have those businesses here, or the possibility of losing maybe some of the tax base and B&O taxes that we've received from that. But you're right, residential growth is huge. We have right now 118 lot subdivision under construction. Tahoma Terra is preparing another 136 lots and have 400 and some approved for when water rights come on. So there is a lot of residential growth. The last thing is there is a transportation issue that is bigger than the city of Yelm. The Yelm Loop is going to absolutely help our downtown area by allowing some of the pass-through traffic, and especially the truck traffic, to get off of Yelm Avenue and go around. But Department of Transportation is looking, not only, this is where the loop is going to come out at Walmart, not only to do the roundabout here, but DOT is looking to do a roundabout at Cook Road and then a roundabout at McKenna, where the backup really is. I think that's going to make a huge difference. It may not appear immediately, but I think as funding becomes available, those improvements are already known, they're already planned for, and will definitely help that bottleneck at the light and at these other intersections.
Do we know that the arterial traffic on the south side of Yelm Avenue will be impacted at all? Or I guess there's no way to run parallel to Yelm Avenue other than on the north side, or I guess it would be east of Yelm Avenue. Mossman and all that, you get as far as you can go there is Clark Road, and that if we ever were to build out that far, I just have concerns about us not planning better on that infrastructure that we're going to be faced with if we continue to grow as we are doing.
Yes, there is, as part of the Y2, Y3 loop, the Yelm Loop is considered Y3, which is the northern side. There is plans for a Y2, which is a southern loop that will go from the Walmart area south across Bald Hill and along the south end of town and back out at the property or at the city limit lines out by Nisqually Estates and Hawks Landing, Palisades West, that area. While that's all future planning, and we know how long it took to get funding for the loop.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, I could open the transportation system plan if you want to see it, but we have a lot of projects that would create another mini loop on the south side of town, like we did on the north. We got the connections you can get from Walmart all the way out to the loop without ever going on Yelm Avenue. So we have the same type of improvements in our plan to be able to get on the south side, to get from Walmart over to 507 closer to Rainier. So we're working on those. They're always in our mind, and when opportunities present themselves to create or fund grants, development to help push those improvements. So Carlos, there is plans on it. We just have to keep finding that money.
Yes. What are the consequences? Well, two things. Are these people, the people that are requesting the rezoning, are they aware of the critical design requirements that we have if they run into floodplains or gopher areas? Are they willing to accept those design requirements?
I have not spoken to any of the property owners about development requirements. If it does change to residential, that would be a good something to bring up during the public hearing, or if they want to come and speak with council. Pardon me, commission.
All right, and what are the consequences if we don't approve the rezone? Now,
I don't know that there's necessarily consequences if we don't rezone it, other than I know that the property owners that did request a rezone, they've been struggling a little bit on trying to be, financing has been kind of a challenge because
Yeah.
some finance companies have a problem if the use is pre-existing non-conforming. They get a little, I don't know, a little concerned to whether to finance the residential developments that's there. We have neighbors that want to be able to use their property and expand it in its residential use, and that's not allowed under the current zoning.
right,
So one way or the other, if it stays as it is, it's as is, but there is, the industrial development really is focused more over in this area of town. There is vacant land. This happens to be, this is an older photo. I think we have a 2019 photo. So this is, look at here. This is the Yelm Auto Wrecking Facility. And so right now, this property right here on the end is vacant. These are in the county. This one right here is vacant. The city has recently purchased that. And then there's a couple smaller vacant land or, areas that could possibly be redeveloped. So there is some property out there left.
Mhm.
I had my concern isn't so much that it takes the away from the industrial and becomes residential. My concern would be the amount of homes that we're selling today, that are single family. These are homes that are 300 and up. For people that want to live in Yelm and want to grow up in Yelm and maybe just kind of stay in Yelm, and maybe not have a larger lucrative job, or have no housing. They have nothing. And I don't know if there's anything we could do if this property gets turned into residential that we say we really need more multifamily or tiny homes on tiny lots, something that would actually create some affordability, for these younger people. And even younger vets, they got nowhere to go.
I fully agree with that, what John's saying. And because the trail is right there and the schools are not very far away from there, and the main park downtown is right off the trail from where these properties are. I think it'd be a very good use to have additional community members, but to focus on
Sorry.
residential that's higher density.
I'm sorry that somebody brought me a note and I didn't see her come in. She scared me. We do have somebody that's been watching our live stream today, and they're going to log on because they would like to speak to the commission. So while we're waiting for that person to come on, John, in response to your question, looking at density and possibly finding more ways to look at that variety of housing types and sizes, then that actually, when we jump into the comprehensive plan and development regulation review, which is going to come after these rezone analysis, we can look at those areas and see what's happened since the last time we tried to update it to get more affordable housing, see what's happening since a year ago when we went through this, or a year and a half ago. was it 2 years ago? And see, there's actually been a lot of movement based on the changes that you proposed and council adopted 2 years ago. My background?
Tammy, the maps that you've displayed have been extremely useful to
Yeah,
visualize.
Yeah.
did a great job there, Tammy.
Thank you.
Will Hutch is in the audience and has his hand up. I've allowed him to speak.
Thank you, Grant.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Hello, appreciate the time to speak. I'm the owner of the 10-acre lot on Railway, 16330. And I heard all your concerns. They sound all valid and all the different directions, perspectives. One of the things I wanted to address was the water. We have a well and water rights for the acre. I believe I looked on the county website, it's like 5,000 gallons a day. So maybe that would be adjust the numbers a little bit, because I know you were estimating maybe it was going to take like 10,000 gallons a day. So half of that is already covered by it. I'm not the developer. I'm just the homeowner that uses it for basically a local farm right now.
Well, I thank you for that comment. I would like to say that this kind of goes into what Carlos had suggested is, does the property owners understand development regulations at the time of development? So while you have your house and well and using it now, that's perfectly fine. If the property were to develop out at the moderate density residential up to 6 units per acre, if you have 10 acres, that would be up to 60 homes. Part of the development regulation would be that well would be decommissioned and city services would be provided to the residential development. So
Totally. I understand. I assume that's what was going to be happening. I'm not going to be developing the land. We plan on staying here for at least another 3 to 5 years. A lot of the problems why we were having issues, we had issues buying this property. It's one of the reasons we got it as cheap as we did, because they were having issues with selling it because it was a residential, even though the city had approved a grandfather and to keep it in its current use after, I don't know when they did the initial rezone. But and then when we went to buy the house, there was a problem. And then when we refinanced, sometimes it went through quick. We just got a letter from the city, stating, hey, yeah, this is a residential use. But other times it was a large hassle. And I know everybody on this street. And then from what I heard was, the planning 20 years ago was, hey, this makes sense as a industrial because of the railway use. Well, now it's not, because the railway is decommissioned or whatever the thing that, and then the running trails behind there. Having a running trail going between 2 industrial zones, doesn't sound safe for people that are going through, running through the city and, residential. So if you had like industrial on one side, the running trail, and then residential for the rest of it, it just makes sense visually from an aerial map to me. But I'm not an expert into this like you guys are.
Well, this is Anne, and well, that makes sense to me as well, because I spend a lot of time focused on that trail and to get that trail out there. And it does make sense. People like to have residential next to the trail. And there's a road as well that separates, there's trail, then a road, and then the industrial on the far side. So I think visually it makes sense.
100%. And back to the water thing was, I don't know how they do their water studies, but I assume that when they do the major water studies, they're accounting for what you guys are using, plus all the neighboring places that have water rights. So they might have allocated, up to $5,000 a day for this property. So you guys would be annexing that back. So that's going to help improve Yelm's long-term water uses. So you're going to be getting more, because I don't use that currently. I use more than the average household because I'm running a farm, but I don't think I'm using 5,000 gallons a day or anywhere near that, or whatever that planning initially had said, hey, they have rights to this much water, if that makes sense. I'm not a water rights expert either.
You're absolutely correct, Will. There is, when wells are decommissioned, then there is a credit to the city for the water that was used previously. There's a formula for that. So you're absolutely right. There will be credit to the city when wells are decommissioned.
Totally. So, it's helping, with the housing crisis. It's going to be drawing a concrete boundary, between industrial and residential with that running rail. Plus, the city is going to be annexing a lot more groundwater, which helps the water and sewer issue. So regardless, if you guys can, whatever they go to, because I think the proposal is for a medium level. I'm not, whoever I end up selling it to, or if I keep it for 20 years the way it is, whoever it goes to, it would still need approval. Hey, we're going to go through this step. All the permits, all the water issues would go through then. So just because it's approved as something now doesn't mean you're going to have to approve the actual buildings.
Mhm.
But that's all I got. If you have any questions for me, you guys have my email.
It makes sense to me.
Thank you for your comments.
And thank you for the time. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Tammy, what do you require of the Planning Commission at this time? Do very obvious from the comments made by the membership of the Planning Commission that the consensus seems pretty unanimous in the fact of potentially making these all residential, but what do we need to do now?
I had to make sure I didn't mute myself. So at this point, moving forward, we all seem to be in agreement that we would look at including just the properties in the city limit line. And I'm going to bring that map back up so that we're all, while these were requested to be rezoned, we're going to look at this entire bank of city property that's within the city limits. I'm going to follow up with the financial impacts and sewer basin impacts. And then just knowing that this is the outline, or pardon me, this is the area that you were looking to move forward with annexing to moderate density. That's how I will move forward with the rest of the analysis. I also will have to go back to the commercial rezone that we looked at and look at it with the analysis. I don't know that that's going to be ready by the April meeting. I'm going to hazard a guess that it won't be ready, the sewer basin analysis. So we might continue moving on with some of the other comprehensive plan amendments that we went over in January to work on the rest while this background work is being done, and then revisit it again with the final decision based on the impacts before we provide that package to the council for consideration. Actually, I'm jumping ahead a step. We would go through all of that analysis, the possible other changes to the comprehensive plan and development regulations. Then once we come to a decision on all the changes we want to make, we will hold public hearings to be able to receive testimony. And then you would formulate your recommendation to council for changes.
Okay, thank you.
So at this time, I don't need anything specifically further from you. Just know that we'll be moving on with some other things, and this will be in the background until I have that final analysis.
Okay.
Tammy, can I break in real quick? Is there any way for the April meeting that the city council can provide us some information on what they deem is of interest to them with the industrial area, the other side?
In fact, John, I would love to have the mayor give us a quick little overview, or somebody from the city council, or even us to go to the city council meeting to discuss that. Not discuss it necessarily, but to find out where they're going with this. What are their ideas? I agree with you, John, totally. I think that's very appropriate for us to understand what it is the city fathers would like to pursue as far as our growth and for the community. And that would also impact our comprehensive plan back in whenever it is, 2025, that we have to redo it.
Right.
To have a better idea. Thank you, John. I think that's a great idea.
Great, thanks, Carlos.
I will follow up with management and the mayor on how to move forward with that request.
Okay, thank you.
If I could just say something real quick, the city council right now is looking through the comp plan, the economic development strategy that they adopted a couple of years ago, and working with the chamber to come up with just that, what their vision is for the immediate economic development future. So it may not be in the next month or so, but we will definitely be able to circle back with you after they get through that process and have those discussions to report out what they come to through that review.
Well, but wouldn't it be good to know what direction they're moving in? I mean, I realize that they may not have a finalized plan.
They don't have a direction at this point. If you watched the council meeting from I think it was 2 or 3 meetings ago, and we'll send you the link. They had a robust discussion, but there was really no consensus on a general movement. But having said that, they did agree to continue the discussion with the chamber, and they're actively working on it. So it's not going to be a long time, but it's probably not going to be your next meeting.
Okay, well, that's fine. That's
Yeah.
all right.
Sorry, Tammy, I didn't mean to.
No, thank you very much. You brought in information that I failed to include.
Do we have any more discussion on this comprehensive plan rezone update? Hearing none, I think we could go to subcommittee reports. And do you have anything for parks?
I don't have any, I do not have any update on the parks at this time. There's a lot of work going on in Cochrane Park. And you may notice some of the work that's going on there. There's been some publication in the paper about it as well. You know, there's also a lot of enthusiasm of use of the you know, city park and the play area that's there is getting an awful lot of good use from people. So that's about where we are at this point.
Okay. Yeah, and is there anything on the Yelm Water Tower? Do you have anything in that?
The what was that?
As
The
you
water
know, they
park?
were restoring the Yelm Water Tower. Is there any other information?
Oh, other than it's just listening to Steve Craig, he says that it's taking a long time to
Okay.
do, but it's happening. It's actually happening. So, keeping up with it, I have to keep up with Steve Craig to see what they're doing. But there is one proposal. I can give you one more item, a proposal for it's an exercise pad that is it's an exercise facility, an outdoor exercise facility for people who would come down the trails but go over to City Park, and proposal to install a it's like a multi station exercise facility where you can do exercise like you're lifting weights, but you're pushing, you know, in pull-ups, push-ups, all kinds of other things. And this was brought to the attention of the mayor by this organization that's trying to put together these parks or exercise facilities for communities, and really trying to promote fitness out there. So it looks like we're going to try to get some funding to make that happen. And so that one corner that's just a sort of a gravel area that's not parking. I can't really I don't know if that's it's out toward Rainier and toward along Mosman on the far side. I don't know if we have a map of that, but that's where it's proposed to be.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been
No.
to, when I go to visit places, when we do walking around,
Mhm.
there've been to many parks that have had those, and people actually seem to use them.
Yeah, and they're tough. That is, they are not the type of thing that suddenly gets vandalized and broken. They're tough and sturdy. And so it addresses some of the need for, you've got a lot of stuff that for the little kids and even for bigger people that are with the splash park. But this would be for, high schoolers all the way up to adults.
Would that eliminate that parking that's there? Oh,
No, there's the parking that's there. This is the section that is on from the edge of the community center
yeah,
over to the Mosman. There's
okay,
no parking in that section.
yes, all right.
And it's not tomorrow that this is going to happen. It's just it's now on the list for trying to get funding and get it going.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
John Graver, you have anything on the trees?
No, we haven't had a meeting, in a while. The only thing we've done is that we're not going to have an Arbor Day celebration this year. It's going to be it's not really virtual. It's just going to be online, something that people can access. We just didn't want to have something that was going to be, lackluster, not be able to bring the kids in, and all the rest. Our Arbor Day celebrations are usually pretty big, and I mean, by comparison to, counties and cities, but we decided not to do it this year and postpone till next year, even though this is our 25th year, as trees, as a tree area, but we'll postpone the festivities till next year.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other committee reports that I may have missed? Anything for the go to the order? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move that we adjourn the meeting.
Have a
Second.
second.
I
Okay.
second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much for coming today. Thank you very much to Tammy for an outstanding
Outstanding.
presentation.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you all. You'll have a great meeting or evening, and we'll see you in April.